He went up the birth.
So much heft, and still you fall like the rest.
Let's fucking go, dude. There it is. There it is.
Your soul. Your meaningless life ends now. The spirit's gone.
Dude, look at our damage. Look at our damage. Look at our fucking damage. See ya. Yo guys, what is up? Mox in our Path of Exile 2 video, and today we're going to be going over my early progression guide to playing a werewolf druid. Now for this Ascendancy, I've decided to go Oracle. I was originally planning on going Amazon. I have shifted to going Druid after we got more information, and Oracle is looking crazy. So I kind of want to talk about why I made that choice, but also give you all the tools you need to succeed and get a really good start in the campaign and start literally like one-shotting bosses. Hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. Let's get right into it. So to start, the biggest thing to understand about the druid slash like werewolf form is where your damage is coming from and how you're scaling your damage. So your damage most of the time is going to be a mix of physical and cold damage. You're going to want the number one thing to get the build start feeling good is to have Lunar Assault insta-freezing enemies. Now, this is a skill that you can pick up with literally your first support gem. It probably won't be freezing immediately unless you get some added cold damage on your talisman. But this reads that it converts 80% of your fizz damage to cold damage. You get 300, at least at level 11, 380% more freeze buildup and 380% more magnitude of chill inflicted. Now, this allows us, first it converts, which is one of the only skills that actually converts to cold damage. So this basically insta-freezes. And then when an enemy is insta-frozen or frozen, we can shred them. Shred has 200% attack speed of our base. It hits decently hard for attacking that fast, but the most of your damage is coming from ice fragments. Attacking a frozen enemy will create ice fragments, which are projectiles that land and explode after a delay. So these ice fragments, they can overlap and basically shotgun, and every single time that we're hitting an enemy, we're going to be shredding these like ice fragments off of them while they're frozen, and then they detonate, and that is where a lot of our damage is coming from. Talk about why Oracle over Amazon, which was my original plan, and I still think you could do really, really well on Amazon, and I think it could be insane for like hyper endgame. However, on a league start, my number one concern on going Amazon, and the main thing that pushed me away from it, is your skills to play as a druid and as a wolf are going to be requiring a lot of strength and intelligence. Your talismans are going to be requiring a lot of strength and intelligence. And if you're playing in Amazon, you're going to be going for evasion and int. So you're going to need a lot of strength, a lot of intelligence, and a lot of dexterity, which you can definitely do. You can make that work. You can get rings with like high attribute bases. However, just for like basic leveling, I think it would be a little bit harder to juggle all those stats. I don't really want to have to deal with it. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't go Amazon. The other reasons are, one, all of the nodes on the druid side are like literally just tailor-made, obviously, for playing a werewolf. One of our number one things that we need early and quickly to make the build feel good is a mobilization buildup. We need things to be frozen super fast. And like right off the rip, there's so many immobilization buildup nodes, so we get off the ground a bit faster, which is why I'm kind of thinking like you could go Oracle Druid to start, and if you really wanted to like respec and like maybe min-max it later on, you could go Amazon. But league start, it's just really, really great getting off the ground on the Druid. The big reason I'm going for Oracle specifically rather than like Shaman or anything like that is for the node Inevitable Critical Hits. This is an insane node. It reads hits which could potentially be a critical hit, but do not roll a critical hit. Will re-roll your critical hit chance until they succeed. Hits have 30% less crit damage bonus for each time a crit chance was re-rolled. So if we get to 50% crit chance, we're basically... So it'll roll it twice. We're basically going to be critting on every single attack and hardly losing any crit damage. It effectively is like doubling our crit chance, because if we roll at 50% and we don't hit a crit, it'll roll it again until we do crit. And so there's been a lot of like Reddit math going on with this, but at around like 45 to 47% crit chance, which is what we're going to try to get to on this build, this node is like a 40% more damage multiplier for us. It's also going to allow us to go crit stuff way earlier, which is why I'm kind of rushing it. The lesser harm is also a pretty sick node. This reads that enemies' crit chance against you is unlucky, and damage of enemies hitting you is unlucky. Unlucky things are rolled twice, and the worst result is used. So just to give you some kind of like napkin math. So let's say an enemy is holding my talisman and hitting me with it, right? There's physical damage on this is 42 to 69. So if an enemy is going to potentially hit me with 69 damage, funny number, and they roll twice, because every hit that's going to hit us is going to get rolled twice, and they instead go from low, potentially hitting on the max value to hitting the min value on the weapon they're holding, I am now taking a 64% less damage, which is insane. That is crazy. Let's say they were going to hit me for like 45 damage, though, and they end up hitting me for 42, right? Now I'm taking 7% less damage. It's a stat that's going to allow us to become more tanky without us having to tailor our entire build towards it. Just every single hit that comes in is just going to end up dealing less damage. So good defensive layer without us having to like invest heavily or do super weird things. You know, like for example, this hit damage is taken from your mana before life if your current mana is higher than your current life. That's a weird node you'd have to build around that could be really good, but like this is just straight up we take less damage. So we're gonna grab this. We're gonna grab Forced Outcome for inevitable critical hits. I'm most likely going to go Path Unseen to give us a bunch of extra new nodes. And then the last point is either going to go into Moment of Vulnerability, which we're going to have to mess around with, or Entwined Realities, which allows us to have a lot more flexibility with our skill tree. But that is why I'm picking Oracle. Shaman, I'm not going. Shaman could be really good, but I don't really want to focus on spells. I want to make a minion, or not a minion, a like mainly focused wolf build. And Shaman seems to be really focused on like hybrid spellcaster, which I'm just not personally interested in. So that's why we're going Oracle. Got some really, really powerful nodes, and then we'll make it work with like Path Unseen and Entwined Realities. And we're also just starting in a super great area for our build. So that's kind of an overview of how the basics of the build are working and why we're going the Ascendancy and the route that we are going. For the rest of the skills, we're basically just grabbing all of the werewolf skills. I've got Shred right now with rapid attacks and elemental armament. I was originally using concentrated support. However, this actually reduces the area of the explosions of the ice crystals, which does potentially make it a little bit harder to overlap them. That doesn't really matter once you get cross slash, but we really rely on these for like clear as well. So that's why I took off concentrated area. But a lot of the gameplay you saw was with this. Still a very good support to pick up. On Lunar Assault, we've got Ice Bite. This freezes basically instantly, so this gives us a buff with where we just get 25% extra damage as cold. Deep Freeze, we want to have enemies frozen for longer. And Elemental Armament, this does convert from Fizz to cold, so it's doing mainly cold, unlike a lot of our other skills. Definitely want to pick up Contagion early on. You stop using this like once you're kind of halfway through Act 1, but the clear of Contagion really can't be beat. You just cast it at one enemy, kill that enemy, and everything around you will die. Frost Bomb is super great for elemental exposures. We just use this on bosses. Put it down. It's going to apply an elemental exposure, which means that we are going to reduce enemies' resistances so that they just take more damage from our cold abilities. Pounce is super, super awesome. It's a movement skill that does a bunch of damage. It applies Predator's Mark, which is going to make enemies take increased damage based on the amount of enemies that they are surrounded by. And it also summons wolves. And so if we have wolves that are getting summoned, the more wolves we have around us, the more damage enemies will take from the mark, but also we just get free wolves, so we get extra damage from them, some extra survivability. So just super great skill. I use this to leap from pack to pack. I do need to change this other support. I'm low on supports, but I've been using Mark for Death, so that when an enemy's marked, our physical damage is also going to be breaking their armor, and so that they're just going to take more damage. Savage Fury and Herald Device, both really great buff skills. I'd recommend going Herald Device first, as it's going to help with your clear, and then Savage Fury later. Once you get Spirit, you can have both of them active. If you want to min-max, you activate Savage Fury for bosses and Herald Device for mobbing. Savage Fury is big because it's going to give you Onslaught for more attack speed and also gives you more damage. It will reduce your max life per second. However, it's really negligible. You can just pop a health potion and you won't even notice that it's draining. Arctic Howl really ties the build together. It's a little awkward to use at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's a super powerful tool. I mainly use this on rares and bosses. Basically, if something's about to get frozen, you can proc this to instantly freeze them and buff up all of your upcoming attacks with cold damage. This is helpful because it's possible to stun a boss and the boss goes into their stun phase without them actually freezing, and we want them to be frozen in their stun phase, or they're like freeze to count as their stun, so you can guarantee enemies or bosses are frozen during their kind of window, which is really huge. And then Cross Slash allows us to just like instantly detonate ice fragments in a big explosion. It also does a ton of damage and has a bunch of AoE. I've just got magnified area in that. In Arctic Howl, I've got Tireless for a chance to not count attacks chance to not count attacks they empower, so that we can have this buff up potentially for a little bit longer, a little bit more attacks, which is really nice. Once again, I'll have all the links on Maxroll. Weapon, big thing is just to find like a weapon with added damage, added fire, added lightning, added cold, all super great. If you can roll added fizz plus increased fizz, that's huge. And also plus level 2 melee skills is all really nice. This is the one that I've been using. It's pretty solid. The rest of your gear, you're mainly just looking for added damage. I got added fizz, added cold. I did get really lucky and get a pulsar kiln to drop, which gives you even easier explosions of your held device, more added damage. For your like gear, we're mainly looking for armor and energy shield for survivability, and then resistances and max life on anything. My amulet's got some max life and some spirit. Boots go for movement speed. I had a random belt drop for me. It's not really doing anything, but it gives me some like life and mana flask and some extra charges, but I get reduced effect of them. And we're not really using our like staff, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Mainly just going for a full wolf build. For the skill tree, we're going to go grab spell and attack damage. While we're not using spell damage later as much, there's not too many great nodes here that we really care about. We don't have any like mana issues. And early on, we're using Contagion, so it actually helps out quite a bit. Going Guardian of the Wilds for increased damage, extra damage, some strength and intelligence. And then we get our first big node, which is Radial Forest for increased area of effect and immobilization buildup. Then I grabbed Harbinger of Disaster. I'm grabbing a bunch of area for some extra clear speed, and we can hit more enemies. This gives us more damage, more area, and then I spec back down to Primal Spirit to gain the extra skill speed. This crit damage and crit chance is not going to be huge early on. However, once we are respecking and pick up inevitable crits, those will gain huge value. I also grabbed Personal Touch for the increased attack damage and immobilization buildup. Attack damage is going to be really great because early on you're particularly like hybrid into cold and physical, and so attack damage buffs both without having to pick one or the other, so that's really nice. And then we grab this increased damage rage on melee hit. This basically, with how fast you attack, gives you 100% uptime on your rage, which gives you more damage. And for every 10 rage, we also get 12% increased physical damage. So we're at 30 rage. So we're getting more than we're getting like 36% fizz damage from this, which is huge. Definitely like a must pick up node in my opinion. We've got a random jewel on that just dropped for me with some presence and duration. I personally went to go grab some extra survivability with reinforced barrier so that we defend with 120% of our armor while not on low energy shield. Just a little bit of extra survivability. And then right now I'm going to go grab Among the Hordes for increased movement speed, attack damage, and our minions have increased movement speed. Then we're pathing over to things like Cold Nature and also Battle Fever. So lots on the horizon for us. Then we're going to probably path up to Dimensional Weak Spot so that we have a chance to treat Elemental Resistances Inverted. This is an insane node. There's also some really powerful nodes with like Electrified Claw, so we can get easier shock. And then there's also some wolf nodes over here to get extra cold damage while we're shapeshifted. Gonna be grabbing a lot of these for extra damage. And then once we grab the crit node, that's when we're gonna start weaving in a whole bunch of like extra crit chance and stuff like that, which by the way, when we take Unseen Path, we can grab things like this, which give us 50% increased crit chance, but we get a little bit of reduced skill speed. And then we'll also be on this side with a bunch of other crit nodes for grabbing like Barbaric Strength for big crit damage bonus, Vulgar Methods for reduced max mana, but more crit chance. It's gonna really, I think, come together. Guys, it's gonna do it for the build guide. Once again, this is just super early. What we're putting together, I will be updating the guide as we go, and I'll have continuous progression video guides. So if you plan on playing a like Druid Wolf build, this will be a great place to find a bunch of guide videos because I'll be pumping them out. I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown, and I will catch y'all in the next one. Good luck on your league start. Take care. Peace.